Good afternoon. I'm Mark Conde from Universal Parks and Resorts. I guess the first question that pretty much on everybody's mind is why would a theme park be at an industrial controls? Basically because the rides you ride at a theme park are, in essence, factories. They run on PLCs. The majority of them have multitudes of sensors, are current attractions. The one with a certain wizard has more than 600 PLCs inside of it and more than 1,000 sensors. A little bit about myself, a little bit about Universal IT. I am not a controls guy. I am an IT guy. I came from the IT world, and now I work in ride and show technology, which is securing cybersecurity for our industrial side worldwide. So, Universal IT, we're responsible for ride and show technology, basically any of the networks in corporate and in the ride systems. We oversee infrastructure, basically, like I said, not just for our corporate environment, but also for the ride and show IT environment, which would be considered the industrial side. That side's being, as it says up there, was cybersecurity, wireless communications, and such. We also design all the infrastructure as it pertains to security when it comes to be it an attraction, be it the LAN, what we consider the LAN, or corporate systems. My experience is I have over 20 years experience in IT. I have more than 15 years experience in cybersecurity. And I am a senior mentor in a couple of white hat groups for hacking. Been doing it for quite a while. So Universal in the United States consists of those 4 parks down there. They actually, we have parks in Japan, Singapore. We're currently building one in Russia and in South Korea. So there's a number of other locations that are looking into building similar parks. So what do we consider our environment? We have the 3 things that we consider most of all is reliability, security, and safety. So reliable, all our systems have to be redundant, highly available, resilient to any sort of failures. Secure. So we have protected environments, we have isolated environments. They're monitored continuously, and most of all, we have to keep people safe, so that's what we do. Your safety, our guest safety, is above all crucial to us. So, as you see, there's a sign from one of our newer attractions. So looking back at our environment, so okay, a ride environment, what it consists of and how does it pertain similar to your environments? Like I said, it runs a control network, it controls systems, PLCs, sensors, drives, you name it, we probably run it. We run a multitude of different vendors. We run everything from Rockwell to Siemens to Pills to the very legacy systems. Our legacy systems, our legacy attractions are fairly outdated. Attractions tend to stick around for quite a while. We may have an attraction here for 20 years. It's the same attraction, it may just be rethemed. A perfect example of that is if you go on Despicable Me. Despicable Me was originally the Hanna-Barbera ride, which turned into the Jimmy Neutron ride, which is now Despicable Me. We do show elements that change, but in essence, it's the same ride. So you're riding a 20-year-old's control system. You just don't know it. So we use isolated networks, or what considered isolated, I'll speak further to. Industrial control protocols that were ancient, Data Highway Plus, Device Net, Control Net, discrete wires. Everything was direct connected. Our HMI was limited. It was basically a lot of direct connected to panel views, in essence. They were all vendor specific. Nothing was vendor agnostic. We weren't using HMIs that connected to multiple types of different devices, end devices. They just were specific. And the final thing is that we lacked really a historian have any login details. So what you had in the system, you had to basically pull it out when you could, and that's all you could do. So in the modern systems, we have new technology. We're using, as far as the Rockwell sides, we're using guard logics, control logics, lots of new technology. We use a lot of their new systems. We do integrate our RIDE and corporate networks, and we do so securely. And a lot of people will be skeptical of that, but we can go into a more technical discussion about that if you want to know why, how. The management is now centralized, so we actually centralize the controls for a lot of the attractions. We actually gather data for all these attractions and can manage them from a centralized location. So we change standards, or we use Profinet, Modbus, Ether IP. Our HMIs are now more open. Customizable, the environments are customizable. We can add and remove items as we deem fit. They're no longer vendor specific. The environments are no longer vendor specific. We don't build to a specific vendor. We build to the need. That's the best way of saying that. So we put in flexible historians that allows us data logging from multiple sources, and we actually gather data now, and we can actually correlate a lot of this information now into useful information or useful data. So legacy attractions, I'm sure they look very much like a lot of your plants. Big buttons, the standard systems that were used anywhere else. If you go on a roller coaster, you're basically, like I said, riding riding through a plant. It does the same devices for braking systems and for locking systems and for sensors for detecting where the ride vehicle locates. New environments there, and you actually see it's a web-based HMI. It updates in real time. We we gather information from a large number of different systems and different vendors information, and we can all see it all in that HMI. It actually works quite well for us. So, ride management for us, and it might pertain to similar to what you do on your plants. Ride control systems, big buttons, legacy systems, big buttons, simple to use. You train somebody, when the light goes green, you push the button, when the light goes red, you push the other button. Thing stops, thing start. It had limited alerting capability. The light goes green, go. The light goes red, don't go. Yellow, something's wrong. Flashing indicators, scrolling displays, really not a lot of information. These systems have been, since the last couple of years, we removed the vast majority of these systems. Oops, I'm sorry, I went wrong. So, and everything was localized. Okay, so the entire management of an attraction was local. So we could not go, you can't go anywhere beside that location to manage an attraction. But it worked. It was proven it works, and many years of people enjoying it. And it's not just Universal, there's also Disney and Six Flags and any other location you would go for attractions. They're running the same sort of systems. New attractions, so we started, still has big buttons, but now we can manage it with an HMI. We can manage tasks with HMIs. We automated safety routines with our HMIs using analytics. They're more complex to use, but like I see there, it allows management of numerous and diverse components. Very helpful when you start seeing that there's feature sets in other components that you would like to use, but since if it's no longer dependent on the manufacturer saying, oh, you have to use this certain type of vendor components. So we got greater alert details. We got real-time alerting. Fault indicators now gave us information. It wasn't just a flashing red light. It was now telling us exactly where it was wrong. In fact, later on, you'll see an image of how we manage our attractions in real time anywhere in the parks. We can now do centralized management, and as I said before, and our technicians now carry tablets. So now if a ride or an attraction actually faults, we can actually see where the fault is. We can detect it and have the technician en route in real time to address these concerns. That brings your uptime, increases your uptime, and allows you to address concerns a lot more rapidly. It also gives the flexibility for resources that are a lot more skilled, that may not be on property on a certain location, to actually be able to address it from whatever location they are. We have a secure campus-wide wireless for that. It can be managed and as it goes into the management outside the park. We can manage any component from any location in the park of the newer systems. So the argument came, when we were addressing this, and why change this? Why adopt these changes? It started a few years back when we started looking into the new technology, and we saw this new technology, but the IT was kind of invited to the meeting as a afterthought, right? So they said, we're going to stick these networks in, and we're just doing this thing. And the questions came up, how secure these things are. Can I change things? What's your passwords? How do you do authentication? How do you validate? How do you get remote access into these things? If I change this variable, would it be bad? And a lot of people didn't have answers to that. So we said, okay, well, what are the key benefits? And I said, well, we got flexibility, it lowers our cost of ownership, which is great. We decided, hey, there's fewer components to fail because we centralize. We were like, well, there's less to fail because you're getting more information, and that in itself doesn't seem like it's going to be less to fail, but the reality is that you can correlate, and you can now have analytics to trends, and you say, okay, well, I know if something's going to fail predictively, then I can address it beforehand, and at that point, I'm not being proactive. I'm not being reactive. I'm being proactive. And it minimized the need for having panel views located at certain locations. We don't want that. We didn't want to have a person have to run to a certain location. We wanted to be able to visit any location and gather this information from whatever endpoint. So, and we thought this was going to improve productivity, and we're going to now do is security. Well, we started identifying that this was a whole brave new world for especially engineers. IT has been in the security game for a long time as far as securing a corporate environment. But then the need became, people started talking things like, Stuxnet, all that wonderful stuff. The possibilities started emerging, and the questions started being asked. And then when we had this meeting, it was kind of an awkward silence when people couldn't answer these questions. And these are questions that IT is asked all the time. IT is constantly asked, how you secure this, how you do this, how do you do that when it comes to cybersecurity. These weren't concerns. There were certain systems that you can circumvent, that when we started delving into it, we found deficiencies, and I'll go into it a little bit in a few. But so we wrote down the top three things. So what was our exposure? We had to understand, were they threats? Yeah, what did they exist? What kind? How susceptible were we? Where were the potential impact? What was the potential impact of these threats? And how could these threats get into our environment? What was the ingress? What was the egress, actually? We wanted to know what kind of information could leak out. You may not think of egress being an issue, but you think about this, and we thought about it. I'm sure a lot of you have as well. It's important to be able to determine how to get into a system, but it's also determine what you can get out of a system. Because if I can get into your controllers and extrapolate a program, I can then manipulate that program and eventually in time find a way of reintroducing it. And now you have a program that looks exactly like your program, but now has new instruction sets. And I can then do bad things. You don't want to have these things to do bad things. And then we started thinking, okay, so the questions were asked, how do we address it to determine what changes we can and should. The reality is that, and just like everyone else here in this room, there's things you can do, things you can't do because of the impact to your environment. Well, we started to think of how do we do it? Where can we do it? Do we do it only on our new things? But what about the old things? We we couldn't let the legacy systems go by the wayside because we were focusing on the new things. So we had to come up with solutions for them. So the other things were, how do we address these threats, as I said, in legacy system? How do we adopt these new approaches? What new approaches? Where do we come from? How do we change the way we do business? And is that what we end up doing? And, here's the question that I've been hearing since coming this Monday. Everybody seems to pose the same question. Who leads this effort? Who has the expertise? Because back then when we started this effort, no one did. We couldn't find anyone. We found lots of companies that professed that they can do a lot for us, but as far as proven track records and getting tons of buzzwords, that's all we really got. We got lots of, yes, we can do X, Y, Z, but they really didn't understand the business or understand the practicality of it, of what we were trying to achieve. And then finally we said, okay, so let's say we get there and we build this wonderful defense. Now what? How do you sustain this? How do you maintain this security? How do you identify future threats? Audits, scans, etc. How do you make them safe? How do you don't impact time-sensitive systems? How do you don't impact systems that are in play right now? So, we didn't know what to do. So the question came: do we commit resources? Do you have a team just dedicated for this purpose alone? And then ultimately it comes down to money. You have to pay for this. You cannot build an environment and then emphasize that there's not going to be a cost associated with it, and say, well, it's great, it's defended, and we can move on. That's not that wasn't in the reality, our reality. So we try to understand the threats. You guys seen, and I'm sure you've seen this before. Vulnerabilities of various control systems, HMIs, PLCs, indicated a much larger problem in the industrial systems. Many industries were based on old platforms, old basic software. Even though their PLCs were new and upcoming, they were based out of old technology. They weren't using new kernels, new software, or they weren't using they were using their same tools, but they weren't updating the tools that they had in place, or the technology they were utilizing. And the basic thing, PLCs are designed to be easy to access and manage. They're not designed for security. They were never designed for security. So, and I get the argument from some individuals who say to me, well, it has a password. It's like, well, one password defeats the purpose as soon as, more than one person knows it. So, and the issue is really not about viruses. So that's the biggest thing we learned. It can be a result of just unintentional things. Yeah, or intentional, malicious or malicious changes to programming. We identified that there were a certain number of individuals who would come to our environment that would be vendors that would bring their own laptops, and the potential was there because nobody was really paying attention to them. We trusted them, but not anything against our vendors, and we have some really good partners here. You can't trust your vendors when anything to be introduced. It's not just vendors. Anybody who brings anything to your to your environment that potentially could impact your environment or interacts with your environment, because you never know. There was a scare of a virus that I'm aware of that had to do with impacting a critical system, and it was because of a virus that affected World of Warcraft. Some person who was a World of Warcraft person who loved playing the game got infected with this virus that steals serial numbers. Well, the serial number program goes around looking for a certain length of keys that look a certain way, and it did. It affected a key critical system. I'm not saying in our company, but I'm saying in where the location that we were told about, and it erased the key. It stole the key and erased the key and corrupted some data, and these people were down. They were impacted by something that wasn't meant to be something specific to industrial controls. It just was circumstances were aligned correctly. So, and we started testing things and seeing, can you break a ride? And how fast can you break it? Well, we tried doing to see on certain components, and our engineers were able to do it with 4 lines of code. We can open all the outputs and disable things that you would think that would be secure, and we were Okay, they were no longer secure. And this problem, we realized what the whole issue, wasn't vendor specific. I do not fault any vendor. All our vendor partners have been very supportive of us and actually took to heart. We gave lots of information to a lot of vendors, and they partnered with us in a lot of areas, and we came up with creative solutions. In fact, Universal developed we have two patent pendings for security for industrial control systems, security devices that we built in-house. Why would a theme park do that? Well, we're that concerned because we realized there's a gap. There was a huge gap. So anyway, continuing so how serious is this? Everybody knows nation states have it. Does Homeland Security, you heard from them yesterday. Japan has it. Singapore has it. These are locations that we are involved in, but it also is in Russia. It's also in South Korea. There actually are departments dedicated to these kind of resources and to address these kind of concerns. It's a real threat, and it's not a U.S.-specific threat. That's what we... So, and then, everybody said, okay, well, from reports, Al-Qaeda had information regarding SCADA systems, how to change SCADA systems. There was actually data pertaining to light rail systems and monorails. Disney may be our competition, but we don't want anybody hurt. So we share a lot of information. So this kind of information is shared with Disney. They're aware of these kind of information. We, first and foremost, in Universal's belief system is that it doesn't behoove us to keep information that can potentially save a life. It's to our benefit to save anybody's life, and we share it with our partners and with our competitors, in fact. That was the Chinese hackers one was one I talked about to our senior management because it did happen in energy chemical plant. It's a known. You can pull it up from the McAfee site about Dragon. It actually was an attack that took place over the course of 4 years. Nobody knew about this. The information gathered from the HS the reports is that they actually mapped out a large section of our power grid for the United States. I mean, that's significant information to get out there, and nobody knew about it for years. And that's the capacity of doing it. 500 bots, there are millions of them out there all the time that are trying to get access to this. Being mindful of this kind of information is useful. Anyway, so we laid down a roadmap and said, okay, we'll identify the threats. So we started performing internal audits. And we started looking in, and this was engaged through not just IT, this was engaged through our engineering and our technical service and our operations. So it was all four teams that had to devote resources to this. And the reason for this was it wasn't just about knowing what the code had or what was how the infrastructure looked like. It was also how the operators interacted with these machines, how information entered the system, how did it leave the system, what kind of information came into the system, what kind of information came out. We try to identify and categorize what's a realistic threat, what actually can impact it. And I would suggest these are, and please understand, this is coming from a theme park. These are recommendations that you can take it at your own self leisure. That it's up to you, but this is what we did. So we identify realistic threat. What can be impacted? How can it be impacted? What's the impact of this impact of these threats? What can they do? What can't they do? And if they did, how bad it was going to be. We started identifying and categorizing our deficiencies. Where don't we have defenses? Why don't we have defenses? Who knows about this? That's an important one. A lot of people don't think, they think about the technology, but they don't think about the personnel. You need to know who knows this information because, there was an old saying in a war, loose lips sink ships. Well, loose lips can kill you in a roller coaster. You don't want that. Our new technology, that's a perfect example of one of our new attractions. If you choose to ride it, it's of a certain wizard. It runs KUKA arms. We're using them, and they move. They don't stay in place. Yeah. So we had to think of what the defenses, and we had to work with our vendor to identify these potential risks to them. And they partner up with us. In fact, there's a KUKA arm now for entertainment because of us. So we helped design a entertainment KUKA arm. So we defined what the network and device security and user security was going to be. And we defined what was going to be our disaster recovery and business continuity plans were going to be. They're very different things, and I'll go into it a little later, but disaster recovery and business continuity, people go, well, what if a ride breaks? How do you recover? What if a system in a ride breaks? That's the difference. There's difference in just a small aspect to a big aspect. And we started thinking about what scalability we can do with our existing systems and with future systems and the future environment. So we wanted to add functionality. We wanted to add features that may not be used currently or may not be available currently. And we were like, okay, well, how do you adopt these features? How do you take these features into consideration? Attractions may not change physically, but they do get rethemed, as I said before. And retheming may require new show elements. So there may be new variables added to the mix. So just like a plant might need new features for a certain function, you have to be able to adopt the environment to that and maintain your security. So we thought, okay, so going forward, we're going to be modular about this whole design, components and technology changes, solutions, how we should adapt to new designs. We had to write up new requirements. What specifications worked for these situations. Okay, so this is just an example of findings. Security with various PLC and software. There's lots of companies, lots of our vendors are producing significant improvement to a lot of the deficiencies that are in place now. But some of them won't be in time. And a lot of the situations, just like the situations with your factories, I'm sure, there is always the question of the update with firmware, right? So who wants to refat and set their environment? Nobody. It costs money, it costs time, it costs labor. So you have to think of alternate ways of doing it, and we think we came up with some creative ways of doing it. Identifying the communication between critical and non-critical systems. We had to actually work out what interface and how, and then figure out how do you stop this? How do you prevent this? Or is this necessary? Is this inherent to the system and that you have to have this? Is this a need? We also found out that we had limited audits. Nobody really looked at the audits, or if they ran an audit, nobody paid attention to it because there was nobody focused on it. Vendor access, as I said before, was usually unmonitored. You trust people, you trust your vendors to come in and to not infect you or release information that might be critical to your environment. Physical control systems were often readily available, and there was lack of surveillance in certain areas, or lack of or poor physical access controls there. The cabinets weren't locked, or combinations were shared, or combinations were on the tape to the cabinets. And those just the same. You got the lock, the key's right here. Or you have a laptop, the password's taped to it. And we learned an interesting lesson. We really realized that it was safer to be online than to be offline. And the reasons for that for us was we allowed us monitor in real time. We were able to adapt IT solutions that were in practice and adapt them to meet the needs of a control environment. There are proven technology out there that can work for you. It's not saying all technology, but you have to implement it correctly and you have to adapt it to the circumstances. It isn't just enough to say, I stuck a firewall in there. That doesn't help you. Firewalls don't help you. Access to and interactions to the controls networks, we can monitor that. We can record it. I can see exactly what you typed. I know what exactly you typed. I know when you access it, who accesses it, and why. And if they don't give me a good reasons, they can stop that access. And internal threats turned out not to be the big thing. It's the internal threats. And the reason for that is that a lot of the time is that you got to be mindful of the people that you have and what the information. That's where it gets back to the whole information thing. Who knows this information? Who can manipulate this information? And who can potentially be disgruntled and do something bad? Maybe they don't intend to, maybe it was an accident. That's the other thing you need to know. But maybe it wasn't. Okay. Infection by worms and virus are likely on non-critical systems than critical. It goes back to that whole interaction of critical and non-critical system. If a non-critical system has a conduit into a critical system, guess what? Your infection is going to go through and it's going to traverse all the way into that critical system. And you won't know about it because you're not looking. And the result of infection to a critical system could be open connectivity because of both types. Maybe it's configured that way. Maybe it's designed that way. And that's what you got to look at your design. So these are just some solutions, and as I say, take it with my caveat. These are our suggestions. You can take them if you like. So we partnered with the DHS. We partnered with all our vendors. Rockwell was a big supporter of us, and we had a lot of proactive and very supportive discussions with them. For a lot of the devices that we use. We collaborated with not just PLC vendors, but we also utilized a lot of the Department of Homeland Security, DOD, NIST guidelines, and we started building our own recommendations. We actually built not to sound sacrilegious, but we built a industrial control system Bible. We said, these are the things thou shalt do, thou shalt not do. These are the things, and these are why. And we refer to these systems and these standards. And we said, we need to build it. And I strongly recommend you doing it with your own groups. Build it and then stick to it. Don't just write it up and it seems like a good idea. Build it and stick to it. We implemented firewalls, virtual access, and virtualization. So we firewalled all our attractions off. Now, not only did we do a firewall from our corporate environment, we also created what's called VRS, which is routing. It's like VLANs on steroids. We implemented that. We implemented secured access with MAC address, point-to-point filtering. We did a lot of things. I won't go into the whole slew of it only because of security reasons, but there was a lot of things. And if you, in the end of this, if you want to send me an email, we can have a more techie discussion. Firewalls aren't now enough. Don't believe it for a second when you have a vendor who says, I got a tool for you. It's not. They don't. We went through and we reviewed, I would say, pretty much all of them. And we had a lab to do it. We have a governance team and a cybersecurity team that actually just spent the time doing pen testing and security and seeing if the functionalities are there. Firewalls help. Firewalls do not stop the problem. If you allow access to a controlled network, because from point A to point B, and point A is giving instructions to point B, and you make that whole or you whitelist, well, guess what? You can always, somebody can mimic the point A and insert the code, and you go, well, you can do stateful inspection and packet analysis, but you can't. There's no firewall that we reviewed that does analysis of code. I can change the code, it could look good, it's the right length, the packet size is right, but instead of an on, it's an off, and now you're having an explosion or somebody is having a bad day. Okay, we did it, we tested it, we proved that we actually do it. VPN and virtual access only to attractions. So we actually implemented VPNs, the conduits to everything. And within that space, we isolated using virtualization. We virtualized desktops. There is an ingress point that gives you a controlled environment. This controlled environment gives you a session, a Windows session that self-terminates. It only has access to certain devices, and it actually has the components and the drivers and the software you need. You do whatever hardware, bring your own hardware, you're still going through this conduit, and you're still going to get proxied through. You're using a proxied system. So we use virtualization as a secure message for our getting into our controlled environment. We implemented IDS. We did not implement IPS, which is prevention, only because it's easy. It's more important to detect, and then at that point you can set off a chain reaction. At that point, prevention really doesn't assist you that much because there's not that. You don't want just one system doing it all. You want multiple. You want a system that's going to alert the system, saying, "Hey, guess what? There's something happening. React to it," and then have a bunch of other systems reacting to them. And use a solution specific to the needs of an industrial environment. Don't use a solution that's just a corporate solution. They say, hey, it's a great corporate solution. And I'm sure you heard this many times, antivirus. Antivirus where you need to. Do not antivirus everywhere. Doesn't help you. Doesn't change things. It doesn't make things more secure. Running an full antivirus against the system doesn't necessarily help you. You have to identify the critical points, portions that need to be protected. And implement some sort of patch management approach. Adopt one. And speak to your vendor. If you have a vendor that you have a component that needs patching, well, talk to your vendor and have them identify what the changes to the firmware does to your code. What does it impact? And then you can limit where you're doing your testing. We have great partners that we're able to do that with, that gave us we gave them the code and they were able to say it only impacts A and Z. And those are the only ones you need to look at. You don't need to look at it across the board because it doesn't change anything else. That might just work for you. It may not, but it worked for us. Maintain ongoing audits. We realize that, it's needed. And it's not just doing the audits, it's also doing the audits in multiple factors. Access control, how the component is, what is the code has changed, a comparison of codes, a comparison of where it changed, who changed it, all those things, where things were inputted, where things were outputted. Have a record of these things and have somebody look at them. Actually choose somebody to do it. And develop fluid documentation. And by fluid, I mean every time you change your environment, change the document for business continuity and disaster recovery. Two very different things. Again, this business continuity, one component went down, but not the whole attraction or the whole plant went down. Disaster recovery, the whole plant went down, you had to recover it. They're two different things. Back up your systems. Back up your configs, back up all these things, and have them in a method that's actually secure. There's a lot of components out there that can be circumvented that provide this sort of functionality, but assess them for vulnerabilities because they're out there. They're actually known weaknesses and deficiencies in a number of vendors' solution for backing up their devices. Let me continue. So it comes down to, who's going to lead this effort, who's going to pull it all together. And honestly, it depends on your organization. You need an IT staff that understands automation. You need an automation staff that understands IT. And it has to be fully integrated with operations. You can't just do it. I'm trying to be politically correct about this, but there's not really any way of saying this. There's huge arrogance in IT and in engineering. You get to see them all the time. You stand in front of them and they pound their fists. It's my way or the highway. Well, here's the reality. If you don't do it right and you do it wrong, none of you will have a job. You will not have a company. You will not have a job, and somebody's going to pay the piper. That's the reality of the industry. Cybersecurity doesn't care if you're an engineer or if you're an IT, if you are the president of the company. It doesn't care. What it cares about is the fact is that you're going to be responsible. And responsible means if you don't know it, learn it. And if you can't learn it, then get out the way and find somebody else who can. Because you're a hindrance at that point and you're not benefiting the situation. Okay? And I'm sure you get visits all the time like we did, and we went through them. We went through a lot of people who come to us and say, we are experts in IT cybersecurity and industrial cybersecurity. We'll give you everything and a bag of peanuts, and we'll do it all for you. And that sounds great. But then you sit down and talk to them, and they use these wonderful big words, target vectors and, attack trees, and, this is how you're vulnerable. They don't know your business. They are a resource to use to an endpoint. Determine what that endpoint is and define it, and then use that information internally with your own resources. Because if you're hoping that somebody is going on the outside is going to come in and give you this miracle cure, it's not going to happen. If it does, it'll only be a limited time of that. It has an expiration date. And if somebody comes in and says, it'll take us 8 weeks to do this, and you come in and they come in for 8 weeks and they gather this wonderful information and they hand it off to you, and you stand there and you give them this wonderful check and you go, now what? Then they go, well, you can continue paying us to keep doing this, or take care. Good luck. Digest it yourself. Getting teams that don't normally work together. Again, there's lots of arrogance. It's unfortunate. And I'm not saying that coming from the IT side, and a lot of the times when I come up to these stages, a lot of people say, oh, you're an IT guy, you don't understand engineering. I don't. I learned it. It took me time, when I think yesterday was a discussion about how many guys list on LinkedIn, industrial control systems and SCADA and our IT guys. Well, there aren't that many because it's not easy to get into, and you're not very welcome. But the thing about it is, it's very fruitful and needed. If you have an IT organization, if you have engineers in-house, and I know you do, find the people you can use. There are those out there who are willing to learn. And anyway, that's my next slide. Identify cost benefits. What's this security going to bring you? How is it going to bring you? Where do you really secure? You secure everything? You secure some of it? Well, you got to identify, and what's going to cost? What's the ongoing cost? So, like I said, and I keep prefacing this, these are recommendations. So for us, we kept it in-house. Why? Knowledge base. The information and the knowledge was kept in-house. We learned that little section in the center, that triangle there, was important. You're going to have your engineers, you're going to have your IT folks, you're going to have your operators, but you need to find those individuals that you can empower to go to all the sides and basically say, I have the authority of head of engineering, head of IT, and the president. You do not deny me, because I am undeniable. I am here to help, and that's the reality. Utilize resources that understand the environment and the business needs. It's important that somebody whoever you're going to have as your industrial cyber person or cyber people, understand the business. It's important because the business is the one that suffers if there is a calamity or a failure in this. Build from within if possible. We did. That was our choice. I'm not saying it's going to work for everyone here, but when we couldn't find the talent, when we couldn't find enough people, we reached out and we found the people, or we found people with potential, and we adopted them into the group, and they told me to lead the way, and went forth and led the way. Adopt proven security methodologies and solutions when practical. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's lots of technology out there that if you adopt it correctly, it will answer your problems. You have to choose to spend the time and the effort to see how it fits and how well it fits in your environment. None of this thing is a magic, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, everything's better. This is not. It takes time and effort, and it takes time and investment of time. And it requires commitment from all groups. Make them all sit at the table, make them all write this Bible, make them all agree to standards and policies, have them all understand, if the communication isn't there, build the communication. And make sure that your executive management understands this and sponsors you. Because if they don't, then you'll never get anywhere. We learned that really fast. And they have to commit money, everybody. Not just one organization. All organizations should commit the money. So we thought about future-proofing. That's one of the tablets there. That runs a certain ride that if you go to Universal tomorrow, you can get and enjoy. So Ethernet became a part of our safety strategy. We replaced other control networks, and we realized that we can interface a lot of different technologies and components into our control environment. For us, it was AV, show effects, remote I/O, and drives. We started using proven methods to build a secure wireless environment. And then we tested it again and again and again and again. And we did that to make sure that we were providing the access, yet providing the security. These are things that are required. You need to do this. Infrastructure design had to be adaptable to changing requirements and expectations without major overhaul. Use technology that are modular. There's lots of modular technology out there. A lot of people says, oh, you use my switch, it's A number one. Well, prove it. Prove it that I can take it out and insert something else that's going to give me added functionality I need it. Have these requirements and these thoughts before you implement, even if you're replacing. So like I said, use modular, scalable, but never sacrifice security or safety for our sakes. Safety is number one for Universal. We will not risk you. Your life means more than any ride. And redundancy. So design it with component failure in consideration. For us, the show must go on. Just because components fail, and they do all the time in our attractions, you'll never see it, or at least for the new ones, you don't, because we have redundant systems. We build it, we design it with redundancy in place. That includes the network. That includes remote routes. That includes remote path. And that includes remote wireless, redundant wireless connectivity. And our HMI never goes down. Why? Because it's redundant. It's highly available. There's multiple servers that it runs on. We make sure that we can get access to that information because of those tablets, because of those the systems. We need that information. We get that information, and we don't risk losing that information or losing access to that information. Here's just an example of what I was talking about. You can take it or leave it, but as you see here, firewalls, that's great, but authentication servers, LDAP, you authenticate people inside your control network, authenticate them outside your control network. If they traverse into your control network, have another factor of authentication. Proxy when possible. I cannot overemphasize the use of proxy and virtualization. It works. It's proven. It will do what you need it to do. You will have conduits into your control networks that are more secure than any VPN. You're not trusting anybody's PC. You're not trusting anybody's component that they have the appropriate antivirus and patch levels. You are giving them the environment that they will work on. And it destroys itself when it goes back, when the time's up. So, and also, like I said before, I'm recording this entire session, so I can replay it when I need to. And if I saw something bad happen, I can see who got in and change and see what they did. Port security for when it comes to wired components and redundance. I'm kind of repeating myself on some of this, but MAC filtering, encryption levels. Make sure your encryption levels on at least set to WPA2 enterprise. Now understand one thing about wireless. There isn't a wireless environment out there that cannot be deauthorized. And by deauthorized, I mean the wireless that you're using in this building, if I so choose to, or somebody who knows this information so chose to, they can deauthorize the wireless and replace it with their own. You would never know. Why? And when you look at that and it says enable the WPA2 encryption, because there's a management packet that's in front of all packets that are broadcast. For you to connect, it's basically the hello, I'm here. You can you can deauthorize that, and by deauthorizing it means I tell it that's an invalid packet and I supersede it with my own. Anybody can do this. There are packages out there. If you want, download a CD called Backtrack. It'll actually do it for you. It'll tell you how to do it. But you have to do it, so you have to put different levels of not just devices. You have to know what devices get in there. And you can fingerprint them not only through MAC address filtering, but you can also do other ways of ensuring that the connectivity is that device speaking to it, because you can spoof MAC addresses. So there's multiple layers of this that you have to do. Don't trust that it's just the device that's just because it shows up as with that right MAC address doesn't necessarily mean it. And make sure that network is correct network. There are different ways of doing that. And like I said again, if you want a more technical briefing, I'm more than happy to talk about it. Wireless network should be separated by channels and by protocols. If you're A, G, and 5 gigahertz, 2.5 gigahertz, different channels, different sections. It's important that you do that. You don't want roaming. Roaming allows intrusions. You can intrude if you roam. Remote access, do it security certificate based. Change the certificate every so often. Do so, because if you don't, you will pay a price, because certificates can be spoofed. There's an individual name of, I know it's kind of comical, his legal name. His name is Moxie Marlinspike. And he figured out how to hack SSL certificates. And he actually has a program and a website that will do it for you. I think it's $15 to decipher an SSL certificate. So he will de-encrypt it. And proxy reversalization, it works, and I can't overemphasize that. Authentication, isolate your controlled environment with some sort of LDAP security. You want to have some sort of authentication methodology. Don't just, and you can use Microsoft's. It works. Secure LDAP with Microsoft works. You just have to follow the standards that are set by DoD or certain. You have to increase the level of security on it. You can do this yourself. It takes time and effort, and there's people that know it very well, and that's what you should be able to do. Do dual factor authentication, revision control, change management. It needs to be applied in control systems, in industrial control environments, and in IT environments. So that's one of the things. For us, safety networks are isolated and secure. IO has a dedicated VLAN on the physical network. That's not enough. I actually was meant to revise that, but you need to do routing as well. You can isolate it also by you doing certain types of filtering. The device that you see there is our e-stop solution. No longer is there a big button. We actually have our operators walk with these wireless, with secure wireless. That is actually a secure device. It meets DoD standards. It actually will survive, supposedly, EMP blast. But it is how we stop the rides. We can stop a ride at any one time, and the HMI takes these things into consideration. We have an excellent HMI solution. Audits, the environment needs to be done already. I cannot overemphasize this. That's why I put it so much. Audit, and then read it, and have somebody to read it. An environment should be monitored continuously. Just because you put it under security doesn't necessarily mean it's secure all the time. So reliability, design your network well. Get people who actually know what they're doing. Network components should be redundant. Critical components should have at least dual connectivity. Beware competing networks. It will kill you. It will mess you up, and it makes you insecure. And minimize single points of failure, including personnel. Don't trust that it's just that one guy. That one guy, just because there's one good guy that knows everything, that's a very bad thing. Oops, what the heck did I just do? Okay, analytics. We utilize our vendors to do analytics, rapid response to conditions. HMIs the technicians have the HMI with them at all times. They can walk around with it. That's, again, another photo of it. Downtime avoidance, we do predictive analysis, we do trend analysis of our components, and we interpret this information in real time, or near real time. Lastly, top 10 recommendations. Build a policy, develop standards, stick to them. Don't just say that you're going to do this, adhere to them. Plan your security architecture. What do you want to achieve? How do you want to achieve it? What's your access? What access should be given, and to whom, and why? You have to answer these questions. Dedicate your resources. That's at least our take on it. Have some resources. If you can't find them inside your environment, then find them on the outside. Do change management. Make sure your physical security. Awareness is one of those things that a lot of people says, oh yeah, be aware. It's super critical for you to understand that if you're not aware of how your environment should look like, and if it changes, what happened to it, then that's one of those things that you need to do. Again, with audits and technical assessments, do them. and make sure there's cooperation between industrial and IT folks. It's not that hard to get them to work together. You just have to remove the arrogance, remove the infighting, and say, look, we have a common goal, and if you don't do this, then we will find people who will. And things change, trust me, real fast. Anyway, thank you for attending. My name is Mark Conde. You can reach me at either of those addresses. Thanks.